Okay, it's 1:30, so we will begin the Liquor Control Committee meeting for today. We have just a few items on the agenda, and we will start with number one, approved minutes of the October 18th, 2023 regular meeting. If there are any changes or corrections, otherwise we will accept a motion.
So moved.
And do we have a second?
Second.
We have a motion and a second. Any other comments? All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Aye. Opposed, same sign. Motion carries. Number two, review liquor applications. 2A is El Vaqueros, doing business as El Vaqueros, to be located at 3001 13th Avenue South for a Class F alcoholic beverage license. Steve Sprague to start us out.
Thank you, Commissioner, and welcome board members. And so this is an existing restaurant. They're already selling food. They've been up and running. Nancy was just saying it's I think somebody she knows is her favorite restaurant. So anyway, now they want to add the alcohol to be full alcohol. Served at a table or booth. The food sales needs to exceed the alcohol sales. They will be required to do server training and all other aspects of having a liquor license. With this, they'll be able to do beer, wine, and spirits, mixed drinks and that type of thing. I've gone through the background check. There are no items of concern within that.
Are there any questions or any comments about it? Any questions for anybody on the staff? Otherwise, if we're ready, we would accept a motion.
I so move.
We have a motion. Do we have a second?
Second.
We have a motion and a second. Any other comments?
I'll just make one comment, Commissioner. I messed up on the publishing of the hearing, and so it won't go to City Commission until December, just because of the way we did the publishing. So instead of going to the next City Commission meeting, it's going to be a little bit delayed.
Okay, and then Steve, I guess my question is, did you notify them to make sure that they knew that as far as their starting?
Not yet. I
Okay.
just discovered that we had messed up on the publication, so
Okay,
I'll let them know.
okay, very good. Any other comments or questions? All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed, same sign. Motion carries. Number three, in 3A, the Police Department monthly report and general report.
Good.
Chief.
Thank you. Good afternoon, everyone. Fairly quiet report this month. There were a couple of issues related to over intoxication. I think on a good note, we'd probably recognize the staff at Bison Turf who did a great job of handling an individual who came into their establishment intoxicated, refusing to serve him. He became unruly. They called our officers who ended up making an arrest, so nice job handling that. We had another situation at Windbreak with over intoxication that was called in by a patron. I'm going to be discussing that with the auditor and city attorney following the meeting. But there's some similar concerns there in that situation.
So I don't know if there's any comments or questions, but John, you kind of had a comment as we were coming in about the windbreak. Obviously, this has been a ongoing situation and what you talked about, Chief. So I don't know if you have any questions about it, but if you want, obviously we're aware there's an issue and there's things ongoing with windbreak. But to me, the most disappointing is that they continue to show up. So, any other questions or comments? Anything you?
Quick question for you, Commissioner. Did our recommendation make it to the commissioners yet?
Yeah, and maybe Nancy, if you want to update kind of where that situation is, and I think that'd be the best way to explain that, if you don't mind.
Actually, Steve, I believe, has sent out a notice of hearing before the City Commission for a special commission meeting. I believe it's 2:00 on November 29th.
And so, if you want to clarify that, Steve, that'd be great. But basically, that's the next. They can appeal, and that's kind of the next stage. And you're welcome to, just so you know, everybody here is welcome to attend if you want to.
Okay.
But it's kind of ongoing, and obviously we have to follow due process, and so that's where it is. So, if you don't mind, Steve, just to repeat the date and kind of where we are in the process.
Yes, Nancy's got that exactly right. It's the November 29th. We had some scheduling conflicts and wanted to make sure everybody was available. We had it scheduled at one time and then found out somebody wasn't available, so we had to come back and find a different time. It does take time to put those things together. We have found through past hearing attempts that you just don't do it at a regular city commission meeting. There's just not ample time to go through all the facts and everything. We've tried to do that before, and so it has to be a special city commission meeting. And then, it's a matter of scheduling everybody's schedules, and now it's starting to fall in around the holidays and stuff. So, but it is the 29th at 2:00 in this room, and we'll go from there.
Okay, excellent. Very good. Any other comments or questions? Go
Yeah,
ahead.
I just wanted to thank the police department and Bison Turf, if anyone is here from there, for including that. I think so often we hear about the negatives that happen at establishments, and it's also nice to hear about the positives that happen and, taking care of it in a positive manner. So thank you for bringing that to attention and allowing us to discuss it.
Very good. Thank you. With that, we'll move on to the next item on the agenda, and that's number 4, the other items. 4A, it's de-escalation training with the North Dakota Safety Council, January 24th, 2024, limited to 50 people per session, and there are 2 sessions. Then the cost is $30 per person. Then I guess my question is for you, Steve, can the commissioners attend, and do we need to go through the process, or how do you want us to do that?
So let's see. The comments that I was going to make is that I'm meeting with our IT staff. We should have the website ready early December, I would think, pretty much at the latest here. And so we'll have almost 2 months then to have people get signed up and to get it on their calendars. As far as if anybody here wanted to attend, I think we could probably squeeze you into the back or something. We shouldn't have to charge you guys for attending. I don't think so. We'll contemplate that aspect and get back to you on that part. But so we're trying to set this up so that if this is successful, that we can repeat it easily going forward. And so the website is, I'd say, 95% of the way there. We're going to work next week on the payment aspect of it, and try to get that part set up. And once we have that ready, we'll get it out on our website. People can just go to the City of Fargo webpage and find the auditor's office, and we'll have a sign up spot there.
Okay, and can I have a couple more questions, Steve? So where will the training be, and what will the times be? Do you know that yet, or maybe you don't know that yet?
Yep. So we're looking at 9:30 and 1:30 for the 2 training sessions on the 24th, and the training sessions are going to be in the old City Commission chambers above the Civic Center. That way, I don't have to incur additional costs of renting out a building and that type of thing. And so, yeah.
And another follow-up about how long does the training last? Do you have an idea?
It's my understanding that it's about 2 hours. So that's we wanted to give the presenter enough time to do the training session, get a bite to eat, maybe answer some questions afterwards, and the same in the afternoon, 1:30 to 3:30, and then he can answer questions and then still get back to Bismarck. So
Okay.
yep.
Any other comments or questions about that? And anything, I apologize, is there any other things you want to add? But basically, as soon as it's available, you'll have it up on the city website with information for people and the opportunity to sign up.
Yep, and I'll probably put a link into that when I send out notices. I'll probably send out a notice and put a link in there so that people can just go right to it and get signed up. We're really hoping that we get the 100 people that we need in order to, pay for it fiscally. And then, like I said, they're very open to modifying the training if there's something that we're thinking would make it a little better for us. They were very open to that aspect of it, whereas the one that we did last summer was not open to any modifications to their program.
And then one more, and I apologize for asking so many dumb questions. But the police department, are they going to have representatives there? Because I guess the other thing, we want to make sure that it's compatible with the things that they are wanting to get across too.
I guess I can't speak for the chief, but I'm sure he'd like to have somebody monitor it and make sure it's appropriate. Yeah.
Yes.
Yeah.
See, you can speak for me. Yes, no, we'll definitely have someone there to assist.
That's great. And I guess that's the main thing, that we want to make sure that it's compatible with what the police department, because I guess that's one of the concerns, that we're sending the correct message.
Yeah, no, and I think I understand your use of the word compatible. It's not going to be the same as maybe with the police, but in keeping with the similar type of approach and strategy of de-escalation, yes, I think that would be good. It's also good for our personnel to know what they're being trained on. So if they go to an incident and someone says, hey, a bouncer did A or B or C, we, as the bouncer's explaining what they did, we are aware of their training protocols, and we can identify, from at least that perspective, if they followed those, and if so, then maybe the other person might not be correct in what they think happened.
And I do think that the security staff, the police, they want to know what your expectations are for them too, as well as
Absolutely.
in the premises versus also off the premises. I think there'll be questions along that line too, to make sure that we're sending the correct message. I think that's
Yeah, I think that's a good idea, because we've had instances where bouncers have left their field of play, if you will, and now they're just a regular citizen, but they have there's some implications there. So yeah, that would be a good opportunity.
That's great. Thank you very much. I appreciate that. Any other questions?
No, I don't think, does the police right now do any type of training with bouncers, or this is kind of our first run at this?
We don't do any training, and we wouldn't do per se training in this instance. The training would be through the North Dakota
Safety Council.
Safety Council. But what we'll do is kind of liaison with them, understand what their training protocols are, provide some guidance, and some of that is, stay in your area, don't pursue people off the property. They might have some questions themselves too about their own self-defense, and I think we might be able to, explain that a little bit to them in terms of that. So I think just kind of creating that relationship and level of understanding on both sides would be helpful.
Very good. Any other questions? I'm really looking forward to this. I think it'll be a great addition to the city, and I think it'll help not just bars, but restaurants. And nowadays, there's just lots of things that this will be a benefit. So thank you very much for doing it. So is there anything else, Steve? Otherwise, we'll move on to B. Are you ready for that?
Yep.
Okay, 4B is additional Z and B limited licenses. One application received for Z.
So I just wanted to update the board here that, the time period closed for that additional licenses. I've had extensive conversations with certain groups of individuals that were interested, but only received one application. And the interesting thing, and we're processing that application as we speak, it'll come to you in December. The interesting thing is that this is a business that is existing, and they're required to have food sales. And right now they're starting to get to the food sales are getting close. And so with the Z, then they don't have to meet those food sales. Probably no change in their business practices, that type of thing. But still, so it just kind of speaks to me about our ordinances. And, I don't know what the answer is, but, it just kind of says that, maybe we've got some issues with how our ordinances are. I know that there was a very similar case involving a Z also a few years back for a Northside proprietor that was always just right on the fence of meeting that 50-50. And once he got the Z license, he said he could relax and just let business be business. And all of a sudden his food sales actually went up. So go figure that out. It's sometimes it's just really crazy. But anyway, so just the one, and like I said, it'll be coming to you in December. So,
Thank you. And so, if there's any questions, otherwise we'll move on to the next item, and that's the follow-up on scanners. Steve.
yeah, just to tell you that, and as I'm sure that you're probably aware, it's a very complicated subject to go down, and so. I've done some research on it. I just talked to the chief beforehand, and he's got a contact that we're going to try to reach out to. I was hoping I could just Google it and find some different companies and maybe find a representative that'd be able to come up and show us something. There's none of that is available. You can get something that'll, you run your ID in there and it'll tell you you're 21. It's not going to catch a fake ID, anything like that. And you go from about $400 to thousands of dollars. There seems to be a sweet point in the middle of around $2,000 or so that seems to have some forensic capabilities, or that they maybe catch more of those fake IDs. It also gathers more data. It'll take the picture of the ID that you used and different things like that. But if I think that it's important for the city to continue to move down this path of scanners, but we just need a lot more education on what they can do and what we're going to require them to do before we make anything mandatory. I know that at the city commission meeting there was some discussion about coming back in 30 days with a recommendation, and as Commissioner knows, it's much more complicated than that. So I just wanted to tell you that I'm working on it. But I don't know that there's a quick, easy answer for it. So,
And so if there are any comments or questions?
Quick question, Steve. Kind of out of left field question, but has the city or the state of North Dakota ever considered trying to go after these companies that print these?
the fake IDs, you mean? I am not able to answer that. I don't know that the city has ever tried to do anything or ever had the capability to do anything, and I not aware of anything at the statewide level.
Okay.
Do you know something?
Well, I think just to add to that a little bit, one of the issues often might be jurisdiction, because sometimes people are out of state. And so if there's a potential for a federal crime, then, we could potentially refer to the FBI, but as you can imagine, the FBI has a lot of other
Right.
caseload, and so that's part of the problem. Locally, we do have some people from time to time that provide us with information. If we can put together a case, we would certainly do that investigation and kind of follow it wherever it leads, at least within our jurisdictional boundaries. But I think the difficult part is just the vast volume that's coming in, and it's coming in through electronic means that we don't know the source of, and it's usually not in our locale.
Okay. Well, maybe just to start would be at some point just to have an ordinance so that it's there in case there is an opportunity down the road, to prosecute something like this. I mean, I have heard that there are IDs that are printed in North Dakota.
Well, I'm sure there are. Yeah, I'm sure that's true too. Right. But again, we've got city of Fargo jurisdiction, right? But it doesn't mean at some juncture we can't reach out to state or federal entity in the right situation. It's just not, it's not a big piece of the law enforcement pie, if you will, based on other priorities that
Sure.
our staff has to deal with.
Very good. Thank you. Any other questions?
So Steve, when we're looking at this, would that just be scanners that would be placed in A and AB licenses, or would it be across the field, or you can do any kind of sorting by the business?
Well, again, that is part of the discussion that needs to take place. So, because the board may not be aware, but so a Class A license is our full alcohol license. Well, it just so happens that Red Lobster has a Class A license. They're probably not a high target area for minors going in and consuming. So, whereas we have some other licenses that have an FA license, which is, the food and alcohol, more supposed to be a restaurant license, but we have businesses that are serving, $1.5 million worth of alcohol a year, clearly more of a bar scene and would be appropriate for them to have. So to try to say by classification, by, the license classification would be hard to say this place should have it, that place shouldn't have it. It probably would be easier to just say everybody's going to have a scanner.
So the difference between a South Poorhouse or a Southtown Poorhouse, is that the name of it?
Yep.
And Spaghetti Western. So you go to Spaghetti Western and they got 4 tables. That's not an issue, I wouldn't think, in terms of looking at them having to have a scanner. But you look at a high volume place like some of the larger restaurant bars, I can see your point. So it's a challenge.
Yeah. So I really feel like with the scanners, we've got a long way to go before we're able to say this is the path we want to move down.
There are some places that have scanners right now, and so for all of us, if you want to talk to them individually and see how they perform and things like that, that'd be great. And we're trying to set up something where we can meet with them. But individually, if you ever want to do that, and Steve can give you the names of some of the places. So if you ever want to go in and just say, hey, will you talk to me about how this is performing? And that's, I think that's a good thing to do too. And so if you're interested in following up on that, we can do that.
Sure.
Nancy, are you waiting to join the conversation?
Not on scanners.
Okay. Are there any comments or questions about this?
I'd like to make one comment.
Go ahead.
So I had the opportunity to do a ride along on the 4th of November, and we did go through 6 different bars. And I will say that I was a lot of positive feedback of going through and seeing a difference of security and bar staff. And a lot of them were extremely engaged, and a lot of them were not using scanners. But I think that what my comment and kind of a takeaway is that there are places out there that have staff that are truly engaged and being able to identify some of these issues. And I wonder if when we are doing these de-escalation trainings, if we could piggyback and maybe even do a 10, 15-minute process where some of our some people can share some best practices. You know, when you get 50 people from different bars around the area that are together, that's kind of a unique situation. So maybe we could carve a little. I'm just making a recommendation or maybe an idea that we can share some best practices with this issue. I think scanners are great, but if they don't work, they don't work. It's one piece of the pie. But truly see some really engaged people in these establishments. So that was my comment. And rest.
Otherwise, that's very good. Thank you for the comments. So we'll move on.
Commissioner, before we move on, I just want to make one comment because Nancy's going to finish out the agenda here. But on December 20th, which is our next Liquor Control Board meeting, we will have a brown bag with the City Commission, to discuss a number of these different topics. And that brown bag is at noon? I think it's right before this meeting. So come here, we'll buy you lunch, and have a good discussion with the City Commission. Hopefully set some, some guidance going forward on where we want to move with things. And then we'd follow up with our regular Liquor Control Board meeting at 1:30.
That's great.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you, Steve. The last item on the agenda is discussion regarding annual background check and manager changes.
Okay, so.
Nancy Morris.
Thank you. And I was thinking Steve could join me here too because he's got some work to do to follow up here. But presented to you today is a revision to 25-1504-1. It is in your packet. This is meant to be a prospective background investigation for existing owners and general managers. Steve will be proposing changes to the schedule of renewals. Right now, they're all due on June 1st or June 30th. And that would end up being a lot of background investigations at one time. So we're looking at quarterly splitting that up. The background discussions have been ongoing for a period of time. We've been really trying to work through how do we do this? How do we do it retroactively, prospectively? We're recommending a prospective application of the background investigations for existing owners and general managers. So in essence, they would be grandfathered. They would be identified by the license holder at a date certain. I'm suggesting depends on when this ordinance becomes effective. Shortly after that, perhaps January 2024. And then the background investigation for those individuals would only be from the time period of identification and their current positions going forward and then subsequent to on each renewal. So in fact, they start with somewhat of a clean slate is the way we would be looking at that. Any disqualifying matters in the guidelines that would then be discovered at the time of renewal, which may result in non-renewal. So it wouldn't be a termination. This proposal places the responsibility squarely on the license holder to assure that owners and general managers are qualified to remain so going forward. I have been asked to correct a statement made by the chief quite some time ago while we were talking about this in this context regarding owner general manager background, and simply that these investigations be done on a yearly basis, and then an individual that was charged with an offense was improperly identified as an owner of Sicky's Garage when he was not in fact an owner. But as previously stated, the intention of the ordinance change is to ensure that the long-standing guidelines criteria for license approval continue to exist for all owners and general managers going forward. and would capture disqualifying offenses prospectively to those existing owners and managers. Right now, when there's a transfer, the owners have a background check, but there isn't anything identification since that time. So it would be on an annual basis. The ordinance changes, as you see, are not very complicated. I think we were kind of, what does this look like? Are we having a new provision? But really, it is just adding it annually. But it's the implementation that was much more cumbersome to try to work through. So what we're proposing today is more of a prospective, if there's an existing manager, or existing owner, that we wouldn't be going back on a background investigation for them. We don't want to be involved in those employment relationships going backwards. If they're qualified now, they should be qualified in the year or 6 months or whatever when they come up for that renewal. So if this proposed path forward is acceptable to you, I will work with Steve to finalize the resolution, to finalize the ordinance, and also address the ordinance with respect to renewal times.
So just a couple things. So what I'd like to do is, this is the first time we've seen the resolution, and so if it can be brought up at our next meeting, and so this also gives the public time to review this and get comments, public comments. The other question I had is, I'm concerned about the staff time. If we have to review, this is mostly a question for Steve, reviewing all the ownership every year, is there some way we can stagger this? So, because to me, that seems like it's a huge amount of work, and I'm concerned about staff time for that. Can you talk a little bit about that?
Well, I appreciate your comments regarding staff time. Certainly, it's a big change for us, but for the auditor's office, I think once we get through that initial year of renewals, I think we'll be okay. Basically, what we're going to do is stagger, like you said. We'll take about we have about 200, so we do about 50 at a time instead of doing all 200 now. And they have to be done by June. We would split it up into quarters and do 50 at a time. We would try to group anybody that has multiple licenses so that the background checks are done once and then they're good for that time. Really, it's the police department's time on doing all of the background checks annually. And the chief assures me that once they get through this first time, and actually with setting that grandfather date and not looking back, it really shouldn't be much, because they're only going to be looking at current events. So what's happened in the last year. And so, I know that this has been high on the chief's list of activities to get done. And it has been a little bit of a challenge to kind of figure some of this out. I've got an initial draft on which licenses we would put in what quarter. So, I think it's just a matter of figuring out exactly what the timeline is going to be. There will be more ordinance changes to the renewal information, because right now it says that everybody's expires on June 30th. So, we may more accurately be looking at a March 1st or March 30th, 31st kind of date.
Just one more. Then also, so the managers, they're also the same thing. We're going to have to go through all of them. But then after that, if a manager stays, then the only time you have to change it is if they change manager.
Is on
correct?
change, right? When that manager changes. And also, if you have a manager leave during the year, it'll be on the owners to request that background check at that time to make sure that they're going to qualify. If they choose not to do that, then at renewal, we'll do that background check. And if we find disqualifying events in that person's background, then, they potentially could have their license not renewed.
Right.
So, yeah.
So, but once again, I just want to repeat, I want to have this resolution be made to the public, so then they can, and all the different owners and everybody can have a chance to review this. And if there's any issues, that we have opportunity at the next meeting to talk about that. So if that's okay with everybody, that was kind of, I hope that's all right. I think that's a good plan going forward. Any other comments or questions? So thank you for all your work, but I am concerned about the amount of time initially, and so I do like the concept of trying to break it up, because it just seems like a lot to try when we haven't done anything for so long.
Right.
To try to do this all at once just seems. So I like the plan of at least trying to break it up into quarters or something like that to make it manageable for you and for the police and for all the amount of paperwork that we're creating.
Yeah, and I think it's important too to set that grandfather. The people that have been working at a place for a long time. We're not going to go back. We're not going to look at at your history. We're just looking at from this date going forward.
Very good. Anything else you wish to add about that? Otherwise, it's 2:00. Does anybody have anything else they wish to add? Thank you for doing your ride along. I think that's an eye-opening experience, and if anybody wants to, I encourage you to do it. But that's it for today. It's a beautiful afternoon, so go out and enjoy the day. We are adjourned.